Welcome back to the Sunny Stampin' Studio. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make this grateful card. Why don't we get started? First thing you're going to need is a piece of chocolate chip cardstock. This is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and a piece of So Saffron designer paper. This is from the Tall Tales designer paper collection. I'm just going to put some snail adhesive in the 4 corners and a little bit in the center. And then I want to center and stick this onto the chocolate chip cardstock. Just like so. I'm now going to take a 6-inch piece of 5/8 of an inch chocolate chip grosgrain ribbon, and I want it to lay across the bottom of my card. So I'm just going to flip this over, and keeping my finger in the spot to mark where I need the snail adhesive, I'm going to put a little bit of snail adhesive, like so. Now, I'm also going to put some snail adhesive along my ribbon piece, like that. So now hold on to your snail so that it doesn't stick to your paper, and then you're going to lay it so that it is about 1/4 inch up from the bottom of the card. And as you can see here, it's just slightly overlapping the edge. Now that is going to be trimmed later. So I now want to fold over the end so that it sticks to the snail adhesive on the back, and I'm just very carefully going to smooth this down so that it sticks to my designer paper. Now as you can see here, I have the end of my ribbon. So I'm just going to take a piece of this linen thread. It is, I guess, about a 6-inch piece, and I want to wrap it around the end of my ribbon twice. Just like so. And then I'm going to hold the end with one finger and then just pull this tight. And then I'm going to tie the ends in a knot. Like that. So I'm now going to trim the end of my linen thread. And I'm going to take a mini glue dot, and I'm very carefully going to take the back of the knot portion and pick up a mini glue dot, and then use the glue dot to stick down the knot. And then the last thing that I want to do for the ribbon is to cut it with my ribbon scissors on an angle. So you can see it now looks like so. Now I want to stamp my greeting. This is called the Grateful Greeting, or this is called Grateful, and it's from the Falling Leaves stamp set. And I want to stamp it in Chocolate Chip Classic ink. Now to do so, I am going to use my Stampin-A-Jig. So as you can see here, I already have my template set up with the greeting, and I want to position it sort of close to the end of the knot. Now because I do have the knot there, this is going to be a little bit lumpy, so you just have to be very careful as you're positioning your Stampin-A-Jig. Now you may actually find it easier to stamp your greeting. Actually, you know what? I am just going to freehand this. So I'm just going to ink it up. And there you have it. Grateful. Now, if you need to use a Stampin-A-Jig, you may actually find it easier to do that before you tie the ribbon end to the knot. So now that I've done that, I am going to take my paper piercing mat and my paper piercing tool, and I'm going to pierce 2 holes, one on top of the other, in the top left corner, because I now want to insert an antique brass vintage brad into each of the holes. So I'm going to insert both the brads at once, and then I'm going to flip it over and open up the prongs on the back. So there you can see, like so. So now that you've done that, you can actually go ahead and stick that to your card front. So I'm going to go ahead and put some snail adhesive in the corners and a little bit in the center, and then I'm going to stick that onto my So Saffron card. And the card is simply a 5.5 by 8.5 piece of So Saffron cardstock, which is then folded in half to create a card that's 4.25 by 5.5 inches. Oops. I'm doing this on an angle, so it's a little bit challenging to see where I'm placing it. There we go. So the last thing to do now is to add our trees, and then we're also going to need to add our button. Now the button comes from the Latte button collection, and all I need to do to thread my button, I'm not going to thread it with a needle and thread. I just find that's way too much work than I really want to put into it. So I am going to take this leftover piece of linen thread, and holding my button, I'm going to thread the button down through the holes. Like so. And then you pull the ends at the back. So this, I'm doing this basically the same way that I thread my button with cardstock. It's, I guess, the non-sewer's way of threading your buttons. And I put a mini glue dot on the back of the button, and I'm just sticking the ends of my thread to the mini glue dot. And then I'm trimming my thread ends with my scissors. So now that I have my button threaded, I'm going to stick it to a mini glue dot. And then I'm going to stick it right on top of the knot, like so. So the last thing I now need are my trees. These trees are not stamped. They're actually cut out from my designer paper from the Tall Tales. It's another pattern. So I'm going to take some snail adhesive, and I'm going to put it on the biggest tree, and I'm very carefully going to tuck the trunk of the tree underneath my ribbon end, and I put some snail adhesive on the back of the tree, as you saw. So I'm just going to stick that down. Now for these trees, what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to put a dimensional on the back of the tree trunks, or sorry, the tree tops. And then I'm going to put just a little bit of snail adhesive on the bottom of the trunk, because I'm then going to slide the trunk underneath my ribbon and then stick the dimensional to the top like that. So the trunk is held in place by the ribbon, and then the dimensional makes it pop out. So for my other tree trunk, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I want a little bit of adhesive on the trunk, so I'm going to slide that under, and I just want to space these out a little bit. And there you have it. Your card is done. Well, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I look forward to stamping with you again.